Sports are supposed to be about triumph, glory, and the human spirit pushing beyond limits, but sometimes those spectacles turn into fatalities. In this video, we're uncovering 6 devastating athletic tragedies, moments when routine competition turned deadly in front of horrified fans. It was August 14th, 2015. A mid-sized indoor sports pavilion in southern Ghana filled steadily through the afternoon, folding plastic chairs scraping concrete as families and students took their seats. The charity exhibition was advertised as lighthearted, but the ring lights were unforgiving, and the crowd noise built in a way that made small mistakes harder to spot. Ama Mensah was 27, a physical education teacher at a public secondary school in Medina. She boxed before dawn, taught all day, then returned to a gym shared with borrowed equipment and peeling mats. Her goal was to raise seed money for a community boxing program for girls, and a local sports drink distributor agreed to cover venue costs if the bout drew attention. She was steady, quiet, and known for conditioning rather than power, with no professional record and a reputation for stopping when told. She understood the risks. Ama taught her students how head impact accumulated, how repeated blows mattered more than knockouts. Exhibition rules allowed optional headgear, and she chose to go without it because her opponent insisted the match be traditional to maintain audience appeal, which was allowed under local exhibition regulations. She weighed nearly 30 pounds less than her opponent, a difference significant enough to increase concussion risk, and he had years of regional bouts. Ringside doctors were certified, but the referee had limited experience with women's matches and had never officiated a mixed exhibition. The challenge that night was not skill, but imbalance. Ama accepted the fight on 3 weeks' notice after another boxer withdrew. She trained lightly to avoid injury at work, running stairs instead of sparring. The promoter emphasized entertainment and pace, reminding officials the crowd expected action. A brief medical check showed normal vitals, and per exhibition standards, no CT or MRI was required, only baseline neurological screening. Humidity climbed as the card ran long. Ama noticed sweat pooling under the canvas, making footwork unpredictable. A coach suggested slowing the tempo, but she nodded and said she would manage. The referee reminded both fighters to keep it clean, then warned the timekeeper not to stop unless signaled. Officials had been instructed that any signs of neurological compromise, slurred speech, staggering, or blank staring required immediate intervention. Midway through the second round, Ama took a right-left combination square to the head. Witnesses later recalled her neck snapping back, knees locking. She drifted upright into the ropes, arms hooked, eyes open. From the referee's angle, she appeared conscious. Her opponent later recalled that her gaze was vacant and her speech garbled, early signs that she was no longer neurologically intact. Still, the opponent, following instruction to press, threw repeated headshots. 10 to 12 seconds passed as the crowd noise shifted from cheering to confusion. Ama did not raise her guard. Her chin dropped, saliva threading from her mouth, pupils fixed. She slid forward and collapsed face first onto the canvas. The referee finally waved it off. A ringside doctor, noting unresponsiveness and irregular breathing, immediately began basic life support, while a volunteer medic called emergency services within a minute. Paramedics arrived in 9 minutes, finding Ama unresponsive with shallow breathing. She was intubated and transported to a major public hospital. Imaging showed bleeding between the brain and skull, compressing the brain. Surgeons relieved pressure, but swelling continued through the night. Despite aggressive intracranial pressure management, the hematoma expansion outpaced treatment due to cumulative rotational trauma. Ama died 53 hours later. The coroner listed the cause of death as delayed traumatic brain injury from an acute subdural hematoma. The report noted prolonged exposure to head blows after loss of responsiveness, absence of protective headgear, and failure to remove the fighter immediately after initial signs of neurological impairment. An inquiry suspended the referee for 18 months and mandated retraining, citing failure to recognize a standing knockout and delayed intervention. The opponent was cleared of wrongdoing but withdrew from competition, volunteering at youth gyms. Donations funded Ama's gym, opening the following year. It was May 22, 2016. A neighborhood football stadium in central Argentina filled early, the concrete stand behind the south goal packed. A regional derby promised noise and pride more than money. The field looked dry and fast under a mild autumn sun, the kind of surface that rewarded commitment and punished hesitation. and there was no sense yet of how quiet it would become. Nicolas Pereira was 24 and lived on a schedule split between dawn deliveries and evening training. He rode a battered motorcycle for a courier company, learning routes and balance in traffic before learning angles in the box. As a semi-pro defender, he was reliable rather than flashy, valued for timing and courage. His parents had helped pay for boots when a local club stipend fell short, and a small neighborhood sponsor covered travel if he played every match. He understood the trade-offs of his position. Defenders met crosses at speed, judging flight, bodies, and turf in a fraction of a second. Headed clearances depended on neck strength and timing more than height, and repeated impacts accumulated even without concussions. Nicolas trained headers with resistance bands and avoided reckless challenges, but he was known for not pulling out near the 6-yard box. The match mattered unusually. A scout from a second division side was rumored to be present, and the opposing striker had a similar reputation for attacking aerial balls. The referee warned both teams about late challenges. Trainers noted the pitch hardness after a week without rain. No weather alerts applied, and protective headgear was not used in this league. Late in the first half, pressure built. Both teams pressed high, crosses arriving early and often. Nicolas cleared 2 balls under contact, absorbing shoulder blows that left him blinking but steady. On the third, he tracked a looping cross curling toward the penalty spot, planting his feet and stepping into the jump. The striker leapt from the opposite angle. Broadcast footage later showed both accelerating, eyes fixed upward, mouths open for balance. Their foreheads met with a sharp, audible crack. The collision caused extreme rotational acceleration of Nicolas's head, producing a severe acute subdural hematoma. Nicolas dropped straight down, arms splayed, legs slack. The striker landed awkwardly, staggered, then stayed upright as play stopped. The striker's head snapped backward on impact. Players waved for help immediately. Nicolas did not move. He was breathing, though shallow, indicating brain injury. A teammate rolled him slightly and saw that he was unresponsive, breathing shallowly. The striker sat down moments later, grimaced, and collapsed backward, unable to move his legs. The referee halted the match. A linesman called emergency services within a minute. Team medical staff began CPR on Nicolas when his pulse faded, compressions visible to the silent stand. An ambulance arrived in 8 minutes, followed by a second for the striker. Both were transported to Hospital Córdoba. Nicolas was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Doctors determined that rapid intracranial bleeding caused severe brain swelling, increasing intracranial pressure and leading to hypoxic cardiac arrest. The striker's scans showed a broken neck at C5 to C6 with spinal cord injury, leaving him without movement in his arms and legs. The coroner's report listed acute subdural hematoma, with secondary hypoxic arrest as cause of death. The striker survived surgery, but was left permanently quadriplegic. Nicolas's funeral drew teammates and students he coached informally. The league suspended play for a week. The striker entered rehabilitation months later, learning transfers and wheelchair use. His club honored his contract and raised funds for adaptive housing. It was June 7, 2014. The outdoor arena at Szilvásvárad, Hungary sat quiet between classes, flags hanging limp, and spectators pressed close to the rails. The footing had been harrowed smooth, but the air carried the dry smell of dust and sweat. It was the kind of competition day where nothing seemed wrong until something went decisively wrong. Reka Fodor was 31 and split her life between national-level horse jumping and teaching children to ride after school. She was known as patient and exacting, insisting on basics before speed. Her income came mostly from her riding school, but qualifying points kept sponsors interested, including a Hungarian tack supplier that discounted equipment if she stayed visible on the circuit. She rode carefully, but ambition sat under that restraint. Show jumping punished hesitation. Riders balanced speed, stride length, and a roughly 1,000-pound horse's momentum over fixed obstacles. Helmets and body protectors reduced risk, but did not remove it. Falls often came from refusals when a horse stopped and the rider's momentum carried forward. Reka understood this well and had drilled emergency release techniques repeatedly, preparing her body to roll or slide safely, trusting preparation more than luck. The Grand Prix qualifier mattered more than usual. Points were scarce late in the season, and scratching meant falling behind rivals. During warm-up, her horse chipped a stride and drifted left, ears flicking back at the verticals. A ground assistant mentioned tension, and her trainer suggested withdrawing. Reka circled again, tightened the girth, and chose to continue. As the round progressed, the arena grew louder. Reka kept her line tight, clearing oxers cleanly. Approaching the vertical near the stands, she shortened the stride to find distance. The horse's head came up, steps compressing. Spectators later recalled seeing the hesitation just before the jump. At the fence, the horse stopped dead. Reka was thrown forward, her chest striking the top rail with force. Her body rotated over the obstacle, and the primary trauma occurred when she hit the ground on her side and shoulder, compressing the rib cage against the footing. This impact caused multiple rib fractures and bruising of both lungs, impairing oxygen exchange. The horse scrambled, clipping the standard, then fell, its hind leg bending at an unnatural angle, resulting in an irreparable fracture. Reka did not stand. She gasped once, then lay still, breaths shallow and rapid. Blood stained her shirt where broken ribs tore through skin. Stewards rushed in as the announcer cut the sound. Medical staff immobilized her immediately, providing supplemental oxygen and monitoring for signs of hypoxia. An official called emergency services immediately. The ambulance arrived in 11 minutes, while staff continued airway support and oxygen administration. She was conscious briefly, then lost responsiveness during transport to the hospital in Eger. Doctors found extensive chest trauma. In plain terms, the ground impact had fractured multiple ribs and caused significant lung contusions, which progressively impaired her breathing. Despite ventilation and surgery to stabilize fractures, her lungs could not exchange oxygen effectively. The pulmonary contusions and flail segment caused respiratory failure within hours. Reka died several hours later from traumatic chest injuries. The post-mortem confirmed multiple rib fractures and lung contusions leading to respiratory failure. There was no evidence of equipment failure or prior illness. The horse's injury was deemed irreparable, and it was euthanized on site. Reka's parents received the official report 2 days later and organized a modest funeral near her childhood village. Fellow riders attended in boots and jackets, leaving helmets at the gate. The horse's stable was dismantled, and the arena fence was replaced before the next event. Withdrawals increased at qualifiers, and the season continued. It was September 3, 2017. A large indoor sports hall in Uzbekistan was already warm by mid-morning, lights humming above a full hall. Platforms were chalked and wiped between attempts, metal plates stacked neatly at the sides. Nothing about the room suggested emergency, only routine strain and expectation, the kind that quietly precedes irreversible mistakes. Rustam Karimov was 22 and worked 6 days a week at a textile factory outside Yangiul. He sent most of his pay home to his parents and younger sisters, saving little for himself. Weightlifting was his escape and his plan, a path to a stipend through the national program. He was quiet, deferential, known for never questioning instructions, especially from his coach, who had placed several lifters at regional meets. Olympic lifting demanded precision under load. A clean required pulling the bar from the floor, accelerating it upward, then dropping under to catch it on the shoulders while elbows rotated forward. Errors happened quickly and under extreme weight, and neck position mattered. Rustam wore standard shoes and a belt but no collar or neck brace, as Olympic lifting rarely uses external neck support, relying instead on proper bar placement and technique. This competition mattered unusually. A factory injury earlier that year had cost Rustam training weeks, and his numbers lagged. The coach insisted he could still place if he hit a heavy second attempt. During warm-ups, Rustam's bar path drifted forward, feet landing unevenly. Other lifters noticed, but said nothing. Missing would mean no ranking, no travel support, no bonus. Rustam missed his opener, standing up late and dumping the bar. He walked off the platform, shaking his hands, breathing fast. The coach leaned close and told him to increase weight anyway, arguing judges were lenient and adrenaline would carry him through. Rustam nodded and chalked again. The hall grew quiet for his second attempt. The bar looked heavy even before it moved. He set his grip, pulled, and the barbell drifted forward immediately. Instead of bailing, he chased it. He dropped under too slowly, elbows collapsing as the bar landed across his upper chest and pressed against his throat, pinning the airway temporarily. His knees buckled. Rustam fell backward, his head and upper neck striking the platform during the fall, causing secondary trauma to the upper cervical spine at the base of the skull, disrupting brainstem function. Witnesses saw his legs kick once, then go still. His face darkened rapidly as airway compression compounded the neurological injury. accelerating loss of oxygen control. An official shouted to clear the platform and called emergency services. Spotters lifted the bar after several seconds, but Rustam did not breathe on his own. CPR was started immediately, with staff monitoring for airway obstruction while maintaining cervical stabilization. An ambulance arrived in 7 minutes, but he had no pulse on transfer and was pronounced dead shortly after arrival at the hospital. Doctors determined that catastrophic upper cervical and brainstem injury caused immediate neurological collapse, with brief airway compression contributing to rapid hypoxic cardiac arrest. Death occurred within minutes from oxygen deprivation compounded by impact injury. The post-mortem found no drugs or medical conditions. It listed catastrophic upper cervical spinal and brainstem injury, with contributing airway compression, leading to hypoxic cardiac arrest as the cause of death. Equipment was intact. The coach was banned for life following an inquiry citing reckless attempt selection. Rustam's family received a small pension and assistance for burial. The Federation tightened rules on declared attempts and spotter training. It was July 14, 2018. A purpose-built BMX supercross track in Northern Europe was loud from morning heats, the stands full and cameras fixed on every jump. The weather was stable, the surface dry and fast, and officials moved the program along without delay. Tom DeWitt was 19 and split his time between mechanical engineering classes and racing across Europe on a tight budget. He was methodical off the bike, quiet with teammates, and meticulous about equipment. His parents funded most travel, and a conditional offer from a regional energy drink brand depended on a podium finish. Racing was not a hobby for Tom. It was the plan that justified the risk. BMX Supercross demanded precision at high speed. Riders launched over obstacles at more than 30 miles per hour, relying on exact rotation and landing angle. Helmets protected the skull, but did not prevent internal brain injury from sudden deceleration or rotational forces. A mistake in the air could not be corrected once committed, and under rotation meant landing nose first with full body weight following. Tom had struggled with rotation on the third straight all weekend, coming up short in practice. A mechanic suggested reducing speed, but that risked losing position early. He needed points, visibility, and proof he could run with older riders. Officials warned the surface was hardening in the sun, increasing rebound and impact force on missed landings. In the gate, Tom likely knew the jump sequence and had cleared it before, but timing felt tight. The first straight went clean. On the approach to the triple, he pedaled hard, then hesitated a fraction before takeoff, compressing late. The bike lifted but did not rotate fully. Track cameras later showed the front wheel dropping early. Tom tried to pull the bars, but gravity won. He struck head first, helmet snapping forward as his neck folded. The bike whipped sideways and broke apart on impact. Tom slid a short distance and stopped. He did not move. The crowd rose as medics ran from the infield. An official called emergency services immediately. Medics stabilized his neck with a cervical collar and careful spinal alignment, then removed the helmet. His breathing was irregular, then ceased. An ambulance reached the track in 6 minutes. Resuscitation attempts continued on scene, but Tom never regained consciousness. He was pronounced dead beside the track. The event was suspended. The combined injuries, high cervical fracture with spinal cord transection, and severe diffuse axonal injury, disrupted vital brainstem and respiratory control, making survival impossible. The postmortem listed diffuse axonal injury and C1 to C2 upper cervical fractures as cause of death. The helmet showed extreme frontal impact consistent with the accident. Tom's funeral was held in his hometown a week later. His parents stood together, accepting jerseys and number plates from riders who traveled back to attend. The series added rotation monitoring, extended practice periods, and stricter jump safety protocols the following season. It was July 6, 2013. The harbor at Alanya, Turkey was already crowded with spectator boats, anchors dropping early for a clear view of the coastal race. Water lay flat and bright under the sun, broken only by wakes and fuel sheen. Officials noted the density, logged it as manageable, and continued with the program, assuming experience would keep the margins intact. Emre Yalçın was 28, a privateer jet ski racer who made his living repairing hulls and engines along the marina. He raced aggressively, with a history of collisions that followed him from circuit to circuit. Small marine hardware sponsors covered entry fees if he finished well, and a local dealer promised backing only with consistent podiums. Emre needed results to stay visible. Racing demanded sustained throttle control at highway speeds across open water. Riders leaned through buoyed turns while scanning chop, spray, and overlapping traffic. Safety vests reduced rib fractures but did little against internal thoracic injury, commotio cordis-like cardiac events, or loss of consciousness. At speed, water struck like a solid surface, and separation from the craft often meant immediate submersion. This course was tighter than usual. Anchored spectator boats narrowed the outside line, and drones hovered low for broadcast shots. Earlier heats had produced near misses, and race control issued warnings to widen entries and reduce inside cuts. Emre acknowledged the briefing, then positioned himself wide on the grid, planning to cut inside anyway. At the start, engines screamed and the pack surged forward. Emre held throttle longer than those beside him, skipping over intersecting wakes that jolted his arms. Approaching the first left-hand turn, spray reduced visibility, and the water darkened with churned sediment. He stayed committed to the inside, likely trusting others to back off in arrogance. Two skis arrived at the buoy together. Track and drone footage later showed Emre's bow clipping the stern of another racer mid-turn, causing both machines to snap violently sideways. Emre was launched clear, body rotating once before striking the water chest first at full speed. Witnesses on boats and shore saw him hit flat, then vanish. His jet ski skipped once and idled unmanned. A marshal aboard a spectator vessel radioed an emergency immediately. Safety craft reached the area in 4 minutes, circling tightly as bubbles rose, then thinned and stopped. Divers entered the water and recovered Emre after nearly 3 minutes. He was unconscious, vest intact, water pouring from his mouth as he was lifted aboard. CPR began at once, with crews maintaining spinal alignment and monitoring for airway obstruction. As they accelerated toward shore, paramedics met them 6 minutes later, but there was no pulse and no spontaneous breathing. The collision caused traumatic blunt force to the chest, stunning the heart and lungs and causing immediate loss of consciousness. While unresponsive, he inhaled water that flooded the airways and lungs. Death resulted from traumatic drowning, combined with severe thoracic blunt force injury within minutes. The post-mortem found extensive chest bruising, fractured ribs, and large volumes of seawater in the lungs. Immediate loss of consciousness was confirmed by witness statements and the severity of chest trauma. The race was abandoned and the course cleared. The series later added penalty points for reckless riding, wider exclusion zones for spectator boats, and reinforced enforcement of inside line restrictions. Emre's sponsors withdrew the following season, citing unacceptable risk exposure. Thanks for watching. If you liked these stories, click here.